and he sat there and he was holding an orange like towel, cloth, something like that, right? And he just kind of would hold it there for a second, and then he would be watching people who were walking by, and then he would find, and I found out later on, he would look for a couple, you know,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
and as they were walking by, he would just throw it out on the floor. So this orange cloth falls out on the floor, and of course gets their attention. They go, "Oh, yeah, well," and he goes, "Oh, hey, can you grab that for me?" And they go, "Yeah." And then he would say, "Can you do me a favor?"
You have found Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. Downloadable audio episodes can be found in the podcast link found at drawincustomers.com. We are locally underwritten by the Bank of Sun Prairie, Calls on Call Extraordinary Answering Service, as well as the Bold Business Book. And today we're welcoming / preparing to learn from Steve Miller, who is Kelly's dad, as well as, and I love this, a marketing gunslinger. So today we're talking marketing. Steve, how is it going today?
Uh, James, thank you so much for inviting me to be here. I've been on a lot of podcasts over the years, and having written a lot of books, and uh, um, I really enjoyed preparing for this because I was able to go back and look at, and you just have this wide variety of people that you've talked to, and there's a very good reason why that's a good thing, and we can talk about that a little bit more. But I mean, when you're talking to, I loved it. Actors. You talk to people who were I used to be a stuntman.
Did you
So
really?
yeah. And
Oh, this podcast just got cooler.
oh, well, it's just no, and there's a lot of reasons why. A lot of reasons why. So anyway, very excited to be here with you, James. Thank you so
Well,
much for inviting me.
yeah, so we have a lot of ground to cover because you've been doing this a long time. I want to start with the big thing. You got the TED hat in the background there. So you
Yes.
gave a TED talk. Let's
Here at TED
chat about
Talk. Yeah.
that because I feel like we have to get that out of the way.
Well, okay, all right. TED is for people, TED is a it's like the world's coolest conference, to go to, and you pretty much have to be invited to go. I had heard about TED for many years, and did everything I could to talk to people and say, hey, if you ever have a chance to put my name in a conversation at TED, please do that, right? And to this day, I still don't know how it happened, but all of a sudden one day I got the letter, and it said, hey, would you like to attend TED? And at that time, that was back in the late, it was like 2005, something like that. Um, TED was a deep dark secret, and it is basically the way to describe TED is, imagine that you had a chance to have dinner with the coolest, smartest, wealthiest, uh, sometimes strangest, and I would say most creative people on the planet. If you had a chance to go have dinner with them, who would you invite? And that's kind of how TED got started, was under that premise. And so by the time I got there, it now has capped at it's a conference of 1,000 people, and they are without question the coolest, smartest, wealthiest, most creative people on the planet. And somehow I got in, and then back in 2006, I was invited by the new owner at the time, Chris Anderson. He and I were talking at the conference, and I said, you need to have me come and speak.
How straightforward, right?
What do I need? And he's like, well, why should I have you come in and speak? And I said, because number one, I'm a pretty good speaker. I said, and I've got stuff to say, stuff to share. At that time, I mean, I had grown up I've already told you that I was a stuntman at one point. Well, before I was a stuntman, I actually was on the PGA Golf Tour.
Holy
Uh,
cow, we got a
um,
Renaissance man here.
well, that's yeah, that was what I wanted to do was be a golfer, right? And I made it. I got out on the tour, except and one thing happened that I was unable to fix. You're actually supposed to make money to stay out there, and I made no money, so or not enough, and so after a couple of years, I realized, hey, I'm not getting anywhere, so I need to leave and go find something else. But I had no idea what I was going to do. I went to Purdue University, played golf on on the golf team and stuff like that, but I majored in electives in college. Okay, I didn't, I was not the
That is the
best,
first time I heard that, but I love it because I feel like I'm
not
right
the
there with
best
you.
student. Okay, not the best student. And so when I left the tour, I really did not have any backup plan. Fortunately for me, I had a roommate uh, at Purdue who came from an old Hollywood family, and and after he graduated, he had gone to Hollywood and he became a director. And so when he heard that I wasn't doing anything, he said, "Hey, what, tell you what, why don't you come and work with me? I'll give you a job, and then you can make a little money, and then you can figure something out, right?" Well, you know, without getting into too many things, I mean, my friends kind of say I'm like a Forrest Gump type of guy, but I had studied Chinese martial arts growing up. And so when I got to Hollywood and started working with him behind the camera, I was just a grunt. I was just, you know, doing stuff. He paid me pretty well. But then and he was directing a TV show that probably nobody remembers anymore, a show called Wonder Woman. I don't know if you
Wonder Woman
ever heard of that
with Linda Carter?
with Linda Car. Yeah, nobody's ever heard of her ever
Never,
since.
never.
She's a nobody. And yeah, so they were doing that, and they had a situation where they had a fight scene they were going to do, and it was on location somewhere, and they really wanted to have one more stunt person do the fight scene. And my buddy said, "Hey, let's Steve can do it rather than wait all day and pay all these people to do nothing." He said he can do it, and it was a non-union show, and so he stuck me in, and next thing you know, for a couple of years, I was out there, and he and his brother was directing. His dad was a big producer and stuff, and so they got me, and they kept me kind of busy for a couple of years, and so. Um, like I say, I mean, going from a golfer to stunt work and stuff like that, uh, it was a lot of fun. But Burt Reynolds was very famous for saying, because he was an old stuntman, he was very famous for saying there are old stuntmen and there are bold stuntmen, but there are no old, bold stuntmen.
Oh, I love it. Love
So,
it.
I bailed out of that. And my friend and I got into sales. So that's kind of how we're going from college and stuff to uh, finally getting into business.
Right
You know,
on. Tell me
so
really quick about the PGA thing. You said you
yeah,
had to make money on there. Making
yeah.
money from sponsorships
No,
or
on the tournament in the tournaments.
oh, I have no idea how that works, I guess, as far
Well,
as getting
you
paid
play in the
there.
tournaments, and if you win them. Nowadays these guys win $2 million from when they win a tournament. Okay, back then the money was very low. I mean, it was very very small. I mean, if you won a tournament, you might win 20 or $30,000 back then. But you are an independent contractor, and so you are paying your way to go out and play. You know,
Gotcha. So if you don't win,
you
you
got
can't
no
afford to keep
you
playing.
you've paid to be there. You have an entry fee, you have your travel expenses, You have you might be paying for a caddy to help you and stuff like that. So if you don't get a check that is more than what you paid,
Oh, I got you. Okay.
so
Interesting. I guess
and
I never
it's the same
really.
thing today. I mean, the money's bigger, but it's still the same thing. The guys still have to pay their way to be there.
All
So
right. So it's either win or go home
that's
or
right.
have enough money
And I
to,
did. I went home.
to keep playing. And then I want to ask you about the stunt thing. Were
Yeah,
you stunts strictly for fighting, or did you get into rolling cars and being on fire and stuff
I
like
did
that?
do a cut. I did do a few car things. Most, back, that was a little more of the Wild West for some people than it is today. Today they're pretty specialized, and I mean they're amazing. They are just amazing to watch, and but I was back there when mostly I did fights. I did some high falls, and but fighting was probably the main thing for me. I did do some motorcycle because I had was a dirt bike rider and stuff, and so
Oh, nice.
yeah, I was
Huh.
you know
So tell me, because you mentioned that you had some fighting background, so or
yeah.
some martial arts background. So that brings you into becoming a stunt person, but in the end, you still got to have some balls to jump from crazy high. They probably didn't necessarily teach you in Chinese martial arts.
No, no, not at all. Oh my gosh, no. I mean, that was learn by doing.
All right.
You have people, people who are teaching you and stuff. If you're doing a high fall, you got a airbag you're gonna jump into. I'm scared of heights, so it's not like I really wanted to go really high. If it was if it was 2 or 3 stories, that was about the max for me. And
I
but
feel
I
like that's
watched I
still
watched
pretty
guys
high.
doing really high falls, and I just go, they are just out of their minds. You know,
I'm
just
just imagining me and someone's like, "Hey, you're a stunt guy, right? You're a stunt guy as of today. You're a stunt guy.
yeah.
So jump on the top of this third floor and just jump down. Trust us. There's a big pillow down there. You're fine." And me thinking,
That's kind of what they said to me. Yeah,
what did I get into?
They said
Or maybe find somebody to push
they
me
said
off.
just land on your back. Just make sure you land on your back. So and you watch these guys now. I mean, I don't know if anybody here has watched the movie The Fall Guy, uh,
Yeah, love it.
which was based on a TV show back in when I was doing this stuff with Lee Majors and stuff.
Yeah,
And
we used to watch that when I was a kid.
yeah, yeah, and you see these guys now. I mean, these guys are fearless.
Yeah.
You watch them jump out of a helicopter down to a bag, and you're just like, that's nuts. But God bless them. I mean, they're just so much fun to watch.
Yeah. I remember, I don't know if it was last year, a couple years ago, I was watching a documentary on motocross and the tricks that they do and just the evolution of
Nuts,
flips and how it
nuts.
used to be
Yeah,
like, hey, before
motocross
this,
is
you had
just
to
dirt
see.
bike. I
Yeah.
mean, that's really, that's what, my roommates and I, would we all had like, small dirt bikes, and we'd be out riding around and stuff like that. And man, if you just did if you just did a jump somewhere, you you're like, whoa, that's really cool. Nobody ever thought of, oh, we should do a flip while we're doing that jump. No,
Right.
no, that never
Or
crossed
four.
anybody.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, 4 or 8, yeah, whatever. I mean, yeah, it's insane today what some of these people are doing. So,
Yeah. It's interesting what the documentary was essentially saying was that the barrier to entry keeps getting steeper because
hmm
what you have to do to top the next person or the
yeah,
person below you is it's just getting more and more
athletics is
trickier.
like that. I mean, if you look at figure skating, for example, okay, and you see what these people are doing today on, figure skating at the Olympics, right? But if you go back to the 70s, Dorothy Hamill, who was considered to be, the world, unbelievable, right? And you watch what she did back then, you're just going, wait, middle schoolers are doing that now.
This isn't special at all.
No, that's right. That's right. So,
Oh, that's
and you
funny.
know what? And I mean, it's interesting because you know what? Business is not really that much different. What we have to be able to do today, in business is far beyond, back, 50 years ago. Uh, uh,
True.
when
True.
when you think about when I was in, we're talking about, back in the 70s is when I was doing this stuff. Uh, um, our mode of communication with customers, prospects, people like that was basically, I mean, you might have a telephone, but long distance calling was extremely expensive,
Hmm.
extremely expensive. You might be able to get on an airplane, expensive, not like it is today, where you can go anywhere in a hot second. So you might have trains, trains, planes, and automobiles, right? And so there were limited um, ways to communicate with the marketplace. You mentioned a trade show, all right? You mentioned going to a trade show. Well, that's how trade shows got started, was because there were no trade shows became the efficient marketplace of industries.
Hmm.
Where you go to and you pick out any industry you want, and you look, and historically you go back, and trade shows, they might have one or two trade shows a year, and it's where all the buyers and all the sellers came into one location, and they wrote orders, on the spot, and that's how they built their businesses and stuff like that. Well, nowadays you've got a gazillion ways to communicate with people, and so that it's no different than the sports or the athletics that we were just talking about. Is that it's advanced so much farther.
Right. Yeah, the ways to communicate is almost, I would dare say, too many
It
because
is too
you don't
many.
necessarily know who's paying attention to what.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I was talking to my sister, I'm sorry, my wife's sister. I tried to call her once, I don't know, it was a year or two ago for something, and her voicemail box is full. I'm like, who's got a
How does
full
that
voicemail
happen?
box?
How does a voicemail box get full?
Yeah, and she's like, I just wasn't listening to any messages, so I just let it get full and I just whatever. I'm like, well, don't people call you? And she's like, yeah, they do. If I see a number and I recognize it, I answer. If I don't recognize it, I don't.
Yeah.
So then you're like, well, what about email? And it's like, email, I got 50,000 messages in my inbox. And it's just kind of evolved or degraded at the same time, devolved, I suppose, because there's no uniform means of communication anymore.
No, it just no, but what it does do is that it forces business people, and in particular those of us, the small business people, it forces us to really, really understand marketing.
Totally. 1,000 times over.
Yeah, a thousand times over, because if you don't understand marketing, and that goes, it goes from identifying who your target market is. We call them moose. See that picture of a moose back there?
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, we describe target markets as moose because we say, hey, look, the way to think about your market, sometimes people get into these avatars, and so we go, let's just keep this real simple, okay? Uh, Imagine that you are hunting moose. All right, you want to go hunt moose. All right, where are the moose? Are the moose in Florida? No, the moose are not in Florida. They're probably in Canada somewhere. So you go to where the moose are hanging out. All right. You go find, and you try really hard to find where a lot of moose are hanging out. Okay. And then you try to make sure that these are hungry moose. All right. But what are they hungry for? So are they hungry for what you're offering them, or not? So see, for us with our clients, we start with this. It's a real simple way of just looking at it. Is like, who's your moose? And do you know your moose better than everybody else? And if you do, and if you know how to communicate with them, then you can start to figure out, okay, now how do I connect with them in those? So it might be on LinkedIn. It might be, I mean, more and more today, I'm hearing from companies that are using Pinterest.
Oh,
to
okay.
connect online. I had a good friend of mine, Shep Hyken, who's one of the world's top customer service experts. Okay, and he was talking to a group of speakers last week, and he said, "Hey Steve, what social media are you using now that you've never used before?" And I said, "I don't, I'm not." He said, he says, "I've got 1 million people connected on Pinterest for my company." And I was like, "What?
Wow.
1 million people?"
Is
Like,
he selling something where
yeah,
the
oh yeah. He's if you Google if you Chat GPT search Shep Hyken, SHEP Hyken, he's one of the most famous customer service experts in the world.
all right.
So I'm
Interesting. I'll
just
have to check
saying
him
that
out.
you see it's evolving. It's all evolving, and we have to pay attention to this stuff. And if our moose are moving from and this is not unusual. Maybe they moved, maybe they used to be on Facebook and now they're over on Pinterest. Well, you know what? I better be heading over to Pinterest.
Right. Follow the herd, right?
Follow the moose. Follow the moose. Exactly right.
I love it. So tell me, let's get back to you going into sales, because that's going from a guy jumping and kicking and fighting all that kind of stuff in Hollywood
Yeah, yeah. A
to selling.
dumbass. I
Was
know, I'm
that
sorry. Not supposed to swear, but
no,
don't.
you're good. Safe place. We're all good. So tell me, how did you decide to get into sales? Then what were you selling first?
Well, I decided to get into sales with my buddy Craig because I I I I had no plan. Okay. I thought golf was going to be my world. And then when, and that and I don't want to say failed because I was still one of the best players in the world. Um, but you got to be like one of the top 200 best players in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there's no shame in that.
No, not at all.
But I had no other plan other than this. So then Craig rescues me. He puts me to work behind a camera, gets me involved in stunts, where I'm making a pretty good uh, living. But it was very clear, God, I'm not going to do this. I cannot do this for the rest of my life. I got to find something else to do. And Craig actually was he at that time he was not as enamored with Hollywood as a lot of people would be, and so he was kind of thinking, "Hey, I'd like to see if there's something else that we can find to do too."
Oh, okay.
So together we kind of came up with this concept of well, what's an easy job to get into, and the answer was sales. It's easy to get into. It doesn't mean that it's easy to be in. But it's easy to get into. And he came up with this idea that, and through his connections, because Hollywood has a lot of connections. Through his connections, he knew about companies, in the Los Angeles area who had products that they would try to sell. They'd try to feature them on movies. You sometimes watch a movie and you see a
Yeah.
product, or product placement or something like that. So he had connections for those, and so he started talking to these people, and he realized that a lot of these companies also had excess inventory,
Oh,
or they had products that failed, and they had inventory, right? And so Craig came up with this concept. I didn't. Craig came up with it with this idea that we could go to these companies and we could say, "Hey, we will take that excess inventory off your back if it's a consumer related type of product, and we'll go sell it, right? And pay you for what, like that." And then together we kind of, and I don't remember who came up with this, but we kind of came up with the idea of swap meets,
all
flea
right.
markets,
Yeah.
right? and there's a huge one. There are two really huge ones in Southern California. One is the Rose Bowl uh, swap meet, which is I think once a month or something like that. And then there's the weekly Orange County uh, swap meet. And so we started to go to these swap meets, and we would take these products and sell them at the swap meets.
So you'd have a booth and
Yeah.
you
We
hustling
would have
people.
we
So,
would have a booth, and we would have inventory, and we would sell this stuff. And by gosh, we were able to start making a little bit of money.
huh? Did
And
the
I
companies that
started to
you
learn about sales.
so did the companies all I'm picturing here is a ShamWow or something like that, where somebody's got a warehouse full of
You know
these.
what? And that's a really good example, because you actually, ShamWow is what you would go to these swap meets. ShamWow was there, and the Ginsu knives, and they were all at these swap meets. They're all at these swap meets, and so we're there, and we got a folding table, and I've got a I don't want to jump up and run away, but I mean, I got some of the products I used to sell back there that actually ended up being products that I helped to create later on. But the point
Huh.
being is that I learned how to sell.
Nice. Okay.
I learned how to sell people, because people are walking through, and they might have an idea, like saying, "Oh, I want to go get some dishes, or I want to go get some knives, or something like that." But they're not necessarily thinking about everything. Most of the time, you walk through a swap meet or a flea market, it's really just kind of a fun thing to walk through, and you see all kinds of products
Yeah,
that
good
might
and
be.
bad. It's a little bit of a circus.
Most of it sucks, and yeah, it's 100% a circus. That's what it is. It is a circus. And Craig and I, especially me, I mean, I got really, really good at selling. And so we started making some very good money. And and actually one of the companies, which was a radio controlled toy company out of Japan. It was actually the world's largest radio controlled toy company. Uh, um, we were selling some of their excess inventory and stuff, and the guy got so impressed by the fact that I kept coming back and saying, I need more, I need more, right? And they hired, they offered me a job in sales.
Nice.
And so now I go from selling to consumers to now I go to B2B selling, where I'm selling to retailers.
So going to
And
the KB toy store or Toys R Us or something like that.
bingo, at KB was one of my clients.
All right.
Or some smaller specialty retailers, or something. And then ultimately I worked my way up to where Toys R Us, Kmart, Target, all these guys, they become my clients. And then ultimately I became head of international sales and marketing for this company.
Wow.
And that's where I really kind of started to make a name for myself in the toy industry. And the year that the Cabbage Patch dolls came out and just went berserk.
We
You
talking
know,
84-ish?
oh, I think it was earlier than that. It was earlier.
82? Okay.
No, maybe no, late 70s or 80,
Okay. Okay.
80. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
And I actually had the number one boys toy that year. It was a radio control version of a Honda ATV.
Oh,
And
funny.
and uh um and I became really well known for that. Okay. And I was very full of myself, and oh yeah, I'm the smartest guy on the planet. I know what needs, I know what will sell. And so I come up with I thought of this story because in preparing to talk with you, James, I saw that you guys really like to hear about um failures.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I thought,
I just want to know
okay,
I'm not alone. That's
yeah,
all.
no, well, you're not. And so here I am. I am just killing it. I'm just killing it. And I'm on the cover of the toy industry magazines and stuff like that, Wonderkin, stuff like that. And and then and then I come up with this concept of a radio control. Think about radio control, all right? And it could be runs through mud and water and all that sort of stuff, all right? And kids love it. I mean, especially little boys, right? They love it. So then for some reason, I come up with this idea of a radio controlled ball. So just a ball. There's no antenna, but it's a ball, and you still run it like with like a radio controlled toy. Okay, so you got the machine, the controller, and forward, backward, right, left, stuff like that. And I came up with this concept, and I just thought, oh man, I am going to blow this industry out of the water. And so I go to the Japan, and then I'm showing this concept of how do you run a ball to where it rolls everywhere. Okay, and must be cool. Every kid's gonna want it, right? And and the bosses and everybody back there are going, yeah, but it does. It's not a like a motorcycle, or it's not a three-wheel ATV. It's not. It's just a ball. Yeah, I know, I know. See, it's different. It's a different thing. It was a complete failure. It was a
No.
complete failure. I mean, I got my company to spend a crap load of money on design, production, designing the packaging for Toys R Us, uh, everything. And it was just an abysmal failure. And nobody, I mean, no kid in their right mind wanted to buy that thing because it didn't go in dirt, it didn't go in water. You had to have a flat pavement for this thing to run around in and stuff like that.
Oh.
And it was just a massive failure. And so I got fired,
Just
right?
like that. Okay, one mistake. One mistake.
Well,
One
it was a
multi-million
huge
dollar
mistake.
mistake.
It was a very expensive mistake, you know. So they were right to fire me, okay. But then it was sort of like after that, it was like I'm like, well, now what? What do I do now? But the lesson, see, that's where and I like myself in a lot of ways because I'm really good at learning stuff and learning if I make, if I, and it took me a year or so to kind of put my head back in place. And that was kind of when I came up with this concept, okay,
Oh,
of the
okay.
moose. It was that, oh, you see, I wasn't thinking about our moose. I was just thinking about what Steve thought was really cool,
Instead
right?
of going to the world, you're trying to bend the world to your will, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I happen to be having a conversation with um, Robert Schuler, who was a televangelist many years ago, uh, uh, a minister in Orange County, California, and I just happened to be having a conversation with him, I said I get it now. I get it now. I'm making a mistake because I'm not figuring out the target market thing. You got to understand your customer, right? And he's the one who told me the moose thing.
Oh,
He's the
interesting.
he said yeah, he said if if moose are if that's your target market, where do you hunt them? You know, and I go, well, I end up in Canada, right? And then he's like, do you How do you hunt them, right? I go, he says, do you use a tennis racket? I'm like, no, I gotta have a moose gun, right? Well, and do you hunt them with ding dong, hostess ding dong? No, I hunt them with moose bait, right? So he's the one who got me into this concept of hunting moose, and which became one of the big foundations for uh, the companies that I ended up working with and building after that. And then when I got into consulting, uh, huge, it's just a huge part of it. Huge part of it is understanding your target market. The more you understand your target market, the better you are. But I had to go through this stupid failure, to realize that I had just ignored who my moose was.
Oh, I get it. I always tell people education's expensive, and it doesn't always happen at college or high school or whatever. But the real world education is expensive as well. So
Well,
totally
you
understand.
also, and I think I read in my notes, I think I see you talk about cultivating resilience
Hmm.
and that viewing failures as learning opportunities uh,
Absolutely.
and and because that's going to happen. That's going to happen. You're going to fail. It's just the way it works. I mean, even my failure on the PGA Golf Tour. I know so much now about um, business and life because of golf. Okay. And even my speech at TED, when Chris Anderson said, okay, what do you want to talk? What do you want to talk about? I said, well, I'm an ex-golfer, ex-pro golfer, right? And he goes, you are? He was
Ah,
very
nice.
excited,
Doors opened.
and yeah. And then he said, well, and so I ended up giving a talk in 2007 uh, at TED that was titled "How to Think Like Tiger Woods,"
Oh, nice. Okay.
and it was crazy successful at TED. And then a couple of months later, my wife Kay and I were on a cruise in the Mediterranean, and we get a phone call uh, from Chris, and he says, "Hey, we're going to start um, putting videos on the internet of the TED speakers. And would you be willing to let us put the Tiger Woods talk on the internet?" I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. So my video was actually one of the first videos on the TED.com website.
Really? Okay.
And then about and I want to say like 6 to 8 months later, um, Tiger decided to have this thing called a scandal.
Hmm.
Um, you know, um, a fight with his wife. He's had affairs all over the place. And then I get a phone call from Chris, and Chris says, we might need to take that video off the website because it's about Tiger Woods, and we don't want to have Tiger Woods connected to TED
Hey
uh,
man, views are views, right?
user reviews. Well, that's what you'd say now. So it's gone. But I mean, but if you go to the TED website and you search my name, um, it still pops up about my program, but the program is not there anymore to see.
I feel like they could have tweaked the title or something like that or something, but I don't know. A bunch of people are going to be looking for Tiger Woods in the search, and
Not no. When the scandal hit, I thought, oh yeah, you know what?
you didn't want to be connected to it. Just
Well, no, I didn't care, but
right. Or
nobody
they
else
didn't want to
would.
be connected
Hey,
to it. I
hey,
see.
he lost all his sponsors except I mean, lost almost all his sponsors, everybody like that. So
Yeah,
anyway, that's just, that's life. That's the way that works.
very true. Very true. I want to downshift and back up couple steps here if you don't mind.
I have no, go right ahead.
When you were at these swap meets and you're becoming a good salesperson, how did you learn how to sell? Did you go to classes or did you watch other people? Or how did you learn?
Yeah. I watched other people other exhibitors at the swap meets.
Now imagine you learned what not to do as well as what to do.
More what not to do.
All right.
Um, the number one thing, which of course becomes part of this whole, our we have this uncopyable brand. The idea being that you need to separate yourself from the crowd. You need to be different. And that was probably the number one thing, was that I started to notice as I watched the other booths and exhibitors, how much they all looked alike. And one time I remember, and it was somebody who was demonstrating like kitchenware, cookware, or something like that. You know, they had one of these like mirrors up on above
Oh, so
where
you can see what they're cooking.
yeah, because so you can see what they're doing, right? What they're working on, right? And I noticed that this guy kept having crowds. And so I thought, why does he always have crowds, right? So I went and I stood to the side one day, and I was just kind of watching him, and he finished his demonstration and like that, his crowd disappeared. He got his orders and stuff, and they left. And then he kind of just stood there for a while, and boy, do I remember this. And he sat there and he was holding an orange, like, towel, cloth, something like that, right?
Yeah, that almost looks like a chamois.
I know it does, doesn't it? And he just kind of would hold it there for a second, and then he would be watching people who were walking by, and then he would find, and I found out later on, he would look for a couple,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
and as they were walking by, he would just throw it out on the floor. So this orange cloth falls out on the floor, and of course it gets their attention. They go, oh, yeah, and he goes, oh, hey, can you grab that for me? And they go, yeah. And then he would say, can you do me a favor? He said, I want to sell my products. I love my products. I think they're great, everything like that. He said, but in order for me to do it, I have to give a demonstration. In order for me to give a demonstration, I need people. And he said, and if I start a demonstration and there's nobody standing here, he said, then nobody else is going to stop. He said, but if there are some people already standing here while I start my demonstration, that gives other people permission to stop. Right? He said, so would you do me a favor? He says, I'm not trying to sell you or anything like that. He says, I just need you to stand here for a couple of minutes while I start my demonstration. And that gives people permission to stop, right? And it worked. It was unbelievable. I never saw anybody say no, because people want to help. They want to kind of be nice and stuff like that. And so they would stand there, with no intention whatsoever of buying anything from him. But they're like, yeah, okay, I'll help you do this, right? And he would start his demonstration, and he'd be talking to the two people that were, that he got to stop, right? And while he was talking to them and he's starting the demonstration, other people saw it, and they would come in and they would stop, right? It's the truck drivers who stop at a cafe that when the parking lot is full, and that's what would happen. And the guy and I watched this guy over and over and over again, and I realized, he was coming up with an idea that I later on turned into a full-blown strategy for businesses that you know, you need to be able to do something and be something that people see as different. Okay, so the orange cloth, you know, got their attention, right? So everything I do, you know, and this and as coincidental as it was because of the guy, because I still remember it was the orange cloth, and my wife still remembers when I came home from being at that, you know, and there was, you know, or about the orange cloth, so like that. That's not the reason why we use the color orange. We have a completely different reason for doing that, but which is not important. But the point being that in order to get people to number one, you have to be different.
Must. Absolutely.
Nobody buys from you because you are similar to the competition. They don't. They buy from you because you offer them something different than the competition. Now, something different that is valuable. It's you know, it's got something else added to it, but it has to be different. They don't buy from you because if you are similar to the competition, then they only buy from you because of price.
No, otherwise you're a commodity. You're just
That's
firewood.
exactly right. You
Yeah.
are a commodity, and you know, technology is commoditizing everything. And that's why it's turning marketing and business from my product is so much better is so much better than, and nobody cares. Everybody's product is good enough now. You know, it's more all cars. It used to be, you know, 30, 40 years ago, there were cars that were crap. Everybody knew they were not good quality cars. Okay. There's no such thing now. All right.
Fair. Totally fair.
Regardless of their price, they're quality cars now. So see, you have to deliver something else, and for lack of a better term, the word is experience.
Oh, I like it. Tell me more about that.
Well, you have to deliver something else outside of the product that people say that is worth me buying from you.
And
Okay.
so when you say
And if you do it right, your price does not become an issue. In fact, price can be higher.
absolutely, absolutely. I have a blog titled "The Value Is in the Price," talking about all that kind of stuff. So
I have another saying that I'm known for a bunch of sayings. One of the sayings that I'm known for is uh, the experience is the marketing.
mm,
So if you deliver an experience to people that they cannot get anywhere else, that's the marketing.
gotcha.
And like the simplest one that example that I share with people is I always is when I'm speaking around the world or something, I will often ask my audiences, what is the most successful, most ridden roller coaster in the world?
Man, I don't know.
You've
American
ridden it.
Eagle? I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Yeah. I almost can guarantee that you've ridden it.
I'm thinking of Great America in Illinois, but I don't know. Or maybe a Disney World thing. I haven't been on a roller coaster in a long time.
Space Mountain.
Space Mountain. Okay.
Space Mountain is just a roller coaster. And it's not even a great roller coaster. From the roller coaster perspective, it's not big, high, doesn't do loop-de-loops, it doesn't do any of that stuff. Okay. But it's wrapped in an experience that starts long before you get on the ride. It starts when you go in to Space Mountain itself, and you go through the hallways, and there's sound and lights, and stuff like that. And it starts to build and build and build, and then it finally gets you to the ride, and then you get into the ride. You don't see anything. You can't see a darn thing, and then you go and you ride the roller, and this is the number one ridden roller coaster on the planet.
Wow.
And it's just a medium roller coaster. So that is a very simplistic example, but that's the point. The point is that you can be successful without thinking that, oh God, my product has to be so much better than everybody else's. Nobody gives a crap that your product is better than the competition. If it's good enough for what they need it to do, then that's all that matters about that. What they want to know is who are you and what are you going to deliver to me that makes this different. I'll give you a great example, okay? And while I give it to you, I will include the story of the famous guy I was telling you about earlier before we got started.
Sweet.
My book, not that one. This one over here. I can't tell which one.
Uncopyable.
Uncopyable. There are 4 books in the series, and this one was the first one, Uncopyable. And a guy named Jim McIngvale in Houston, Texas, who is also known as Mattress Mac. Jim owns 3 furniture stores, home furnishing stores in Houston. And several years ago, when Hurricane Katrina blew up Houston and flooded Houston, destroyed Houston, so like that, Jim went on to he was known as his commercials he called himself Mattress Mac, in his commercials, and that's what he was known as. His nickname was Mattress Mac. Hurricane Katrina destroyed Houston. He goes on to Facebook Live and he makes an announcement. He says, if you have lost your home, if you've been displaced by the hurricane and you need a place to stay, come to one of our stores. You can sleep on our beds. If our beds are full, we'll pull the mattresses out of the warehouse. You can sleep on the mattresses. If those are full, you can sleep on the couches. If you are hungry, we will feed you. If you need clothing, we will find clothing for you. The guy became a certifiable rock star in Houston. I mean, really famous. And he's famous worldwide. If you Google Mattress Mac, you will find him. He's also well known because he became a very high stakes gambler in baseball and football and stuff like that. But that's not the point. The point is that he was already very, very famous. He read my book. And he's a huge sports fan. At the opening of the Houston Astros baseball season, the opening game, he's sitting there, and the Houston Astros come running out onto the field in their bright orange shirts, and he looked at his son, and he said, Steve Miller.
Boom. I love it.
And he called me the next morning, hired me on the spot.
Very cool.
To consult for them. So so that was that was really, really amazing. Now, when I was out there working with him, he was already doing stuff that I just thought was incredible. Why? This guy's successful for a reason, right? One of the things that he was doing was when he has deliveries, like let's say somebody has a couch to deliver, right? And and I met with his whole all of his employees. I met with all of his employees, delivery people, salespeople, everybody, right? And in one of the meetings, I'm with the delivery people, and they start talking about that they are delivering product. They're delivering a couch, and like two guys are talking about delivering a couch out of this ranch outside of Houston, and they go out and they deliver it. Everything looks great. They clean it all up, ready to go. And then they said, Jim always told his delivery people before they leave, they are to ask the customer one more question. And that question is there anything that you need to have done around here that we can help you with?
Oh.
And these two guys said to me, they said that they were delivered, and it was like just a few days before. They said they delivered this couch or something, and they said that to this woman, and she looked at them, and they're out on the ranch, and she said, "My husband was in an accident recently, and he's injured. He can't He says we've got cows that need to be milked. We have horses that need to be exercised." And she says, I have not been able to get to all that stuff today. And these two guys, both of them have said, we grew up on farms. We'll take care of it. One of them took off and went out and milked the cows. The other one ran out, got the horses, and went out and jumped on one of the horses and started exercising the horses, riding them all over the place. All right. When they got done, they asked if she needed anything else. She said, that's amazing. Thank you very much. And they left. Now think about that. It was a mattress. It was a couch. They delivered a couch. Probably a decent couch.
Sure.
Okay. But how many times do you think they told that story to friends?
Hundreds, I imagine.
And anybody who visits their home and comes and sits down on their couch, you know what? They're going, she's saying, let me tell you about this couch. Right? It's not the couch. It was the experience.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I remember I was in a speech one time, big speech, a lot of people. And I'm telling this story, and this guy raises his hand and he goes, hey, I'm in, business of having my employees deliver products and stuff like that. He says, I would never do that. He says, because their job is to get the product delivered and move on to the next delivery. And I said, then be very, very thankful you are not competing with Jim McIngvale.
Oh, nice.
See, that's the thing. What is the experience? What is it that we are delivering to people that they cannot and or won't get somewhere else?
Don't be the commodity.
Somewhere else. See, and I learned this stuff just from when I'm out, growing up, and I'm doing this stuff, and I start to realize, and this is one of the things that when I was preparing for my conversation with you, James, and I'm looking at all these different interviews that you got interviews with people, with landscapers, you got with painters. My favorite one, I told you earlier, my favorite one, actors.
Mm-hmm.
Actors. Well, see, these are different industries, different jobs. They're doing different things. That's where we learn. We don't learn by staring at our competition.
True. So true. Oh my gosh, yes.
And that's the bottom line. And that's what the Uncopyable thing is all about. Is what we teach is and I actually learned this from one of the consultants on the 8-track. Growing up, I'm a young teenager. I told you, my dad was the co-inventor of the 8-track tape player.
Yeah.
Okay, and he and his partner, they couldn't afford to build it in the United States.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because they didn't have enough money. They said labor was too costly.
Sure. Still is.
So so they tried to build it in Nogales, Mexico.
Okay.
And they said, yeah, labor was fine, but the government officials were too expensive.
Ah.
So my dad came up with the idea. He had done some work in Japan, and he said, "Oh, I got an idea." He says, "I think we can build this in Japan, But this is back in the early '60s. The problem was made in Japan back in the '60s. It was crap. It was junk.
Sure. Bad connotation there.
Yeah, it was known as junk. Except there was one company who had found this guy from America who was a consultant in the US who could not get companies to hire him in the US.
Deming?
His name was W. Edwards Deming. He had this concept of total quality management. And Toyota said, all right, you come and work with us. Help us do this, right? So my dad and his partner Bill Lear of Learjet hired Deming to
Wow.
make sure that when the 8-track was built in Japan, the quality was good enough to sell to what they kept referring to as the consumer nation, the United States. If it wasn't good enough, the 8-track was going to fail right out of the box. So it had to be built back then. It had to be built with high quality. So Deming was the one who taught that. One of the things that stuck with me, I was a young teenager, and my dad would drag me on trips with these 3 old white guys, who and Deming had no interest in spending time with this teenager. But I was there, and one of the things that he would teach that is part of the total quality philosophy is benchmarking.
Okay.
So, and benchmarking is the definition of benchmarking is to observe correct behavior and then emulate within your own context. But Deming used to he would rant and rave about the fact that, and he couldn't get American companies to hire him because they had no interest in the especially the benchmarking part. Because there are 2 parts to benchmarking that most companies fail to realize. One part is intrinsic benchmarking. You study your competition. What are they doing? What's coming up with them and stuff like that. So you see, if you see them doing something, and for the most part, 99% of the time, if you see them doing something that is winning, it's because they're doing something better than the competition. And that's the key word. It's only better. Better is always beatable.
Love that.
Different can be unbeatable. See, and that's what, and Deming used to say. He said there's intrinsic benchmarking. He says, and that's where you study your competition. You watch your competition and you look for ways to be better than your competition. But at the very least, you make sure that you are minimum viable product, right? That you are as good as the competition. That's intrinsic. Okay. And 99% of companies out there, all they study is the competition. Okay. Deming said, if you want new ideas, you have to do extrinsic benchmarking. In other words, you have to go somewhere else. and this is the old get out of the box thing, right? That
Hmm.
nobody ever explains to you what does that really mean. Getting out of the box means that you leave the world that you're in. You go somewhere else. But they say get out of the box. They don't tell you really what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. No, what Deming meant was you go climb into other boxes.
Hmm.
So like if you are in the I don't know, uh restaurant industry, okay? And historically all you do is study all your competitors. You just study the other restaurants. Okay. No, Deming would say, no, you need to get out and you need to go into the healthcare box. Go
Hmm.
study the hospitals, go study the doctors, go study them, and then get out of that box and go get into the aerospace manufacturing box, and go see what are those companies doing over there. Okay, because what they're doing might be different than what you're doing.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
where you're going to get your new ideas. That's why one of our books is called Stealing Genius, and we because we teach the concept is get out of you have to not just get out of your box, you have to go into other places. I'll get perfect example. I was consulting for Caterpillar,
Okay.
and they were trying to come up with some new ideas for uh, teaching drivers and for helping their customers to see their products. Anyway, so I'm in Chicago where the headquarters is outside of Chicago, and I rented a bus and I took the upper management, put them in the bus, and I said, okay, I'm gonna take you somewhere. We're gonna go study. And they think, oh, we're gonna go to some manufacturing facility and go, stuff like that, right? That's in the box thinking. Okay. No, I took them to the American Girl place,
All right.
which at that time was the only American Girl store in the world. And and as we pulled up out front, they all go, "What is this?" I said, "Well, you're going to go inside this." They said, "We're going into a doll store." I said,
Yeah, you
"Yeah,
got a bunch of guys from Caterpillar at the doll
that's
store.
right. You're going into a doll store." I said, "And I want you to take notes, and I want you to go look at how do they connect with their customers. What are they doing with their customers, right? You know, I had to drag them kicking and screaming off the bus and into American Girl store. 2 hours later, I had to drag them kicking and screaming out of the store because they were taking so many notes.
I
You
get
know,
it. I get it. I can
and
tell you,
that's
I was in Portugal, I don't know, last year sometime, and I'm sitting at this restaurant and I'm watching the wait staff come out with the tablecloths. So a group of people would leave and they'd have a bus person, whatever, take the stuff, remove the old tablecloth. And I was looking at the way that the tablecloth that they had it folded so that they could just lay it down, unroll, and in seconds they had that down. Where comparatively at other restaurants, you'd see it would be folded or it'd be a
right.
ball. And these people had it down so it was efficient. It was essentially wrinkle free and it was just fast,
Yeah,
but they could keep turning the tables. And I remember just watching that, and I probably look like a creep because I'm just watching them do this at all the tables. And I'm thinking somebody had to come up with a way to fold those. They had to
yep,
work with the laundry people to get them to fold them that way.
yeah. And where did they come up with the idea? Who knows where they came up with the idea? But
Right.
again,
Wow.
it's ideas are all around us every
Totally.
single
Totally.
day, no matter where. You can go into a Starbucks and come up with a new idea. Yeah, let me ask you, I mean, simple stuff like language. Uh,
Absolutely. Yeah.
you can. None of us knew how to order coffee until Starbucks taught us Italian,
So true. So true.
right? And where did that come from? I mean, he did, he just came back from Italy and he said, "Oh, I want to do that." And
Hmm.
I'll just transfer that over here. I won't use the American way of ordering stuff. I'll use the way it was over there. completely different. And and that's the thing is that we just tend to look at our world and we say, oh, I can be better than our competition. Nobody
Right.
cares.
Right.
Nobody
Totally
cares
agree.
that you can be better than your competition because your competition will you know what, your competition are watching you too. If you come up with if you start to have some, we have our more RPMs, than they do. Oh, okay. We'll make our machine faster than your machine. No, you need to come up with something that they cannot do or they won't do. That's one of the
Right.
beautiful things about the uncopyable concept is that, see, and James, the way I learned all this stuff was purely by accident. It was because it started with Deming, who planted this seed in my head, right? And then I go out. My dad does the 8-track, so I'm around that. I also was around broadcasting, radio and TV, so yeah. And then I want to be a golfer, so then I'm around golfers. I learn about how to think about goal setting, like I talked about with Tiger at TED. All right, but then I go from there to stunts, and I'm seeing a different thing. And the whole thing was that what was happening was that I was experiencing different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
It was all driven home to me years later. I'm golfing with the president with Jim Nordstrom, president of Nordstrom stores at the time, and we talked business, we talked marketing, stuff like that. And he said to me, he said, "I think maybe we might want to hire you to consult for us." And I said, "Jim," I said, I know nothing about retail. I all my experience has been B2B. And so I said, I know nothing. And he said, "That's why we want to hire you." He says, "If we hire uh, retail consultants, they're just going to teach us what they teach our competition."
The same stuff everyone else is doing. Yeah.
That's right. And he said, "But if we," and when he said that to me, it was like, oh my God, it was the light bulb went off. And I thought, Deming. And I realized I had all these different experiences. Most people don't have multiple experiences. And so it made me start to think, okay, I have to continue to do that. I have to continue to expose myself to new experiences and because that's where the new ideas are going to come in. And that's how I built my business.
Love it. Love it. It's interesting because when you say, I'm thinking about this, when you say think outside the box, sometimes it means just getting outside of your house or your hotel room or whatever and just go experience something. Meet some people, go to a restaurant, bar, roller coaster, whatever.
Yeah.
But just be observant.
Yeah. Well, it starts with being aware, being observant. That's what it starts with. The second thing is that you really need to just push yourself to go to places that you normally wouldn't go to. Steve Jobs was famous for that. He when he would have meetings at Apple, he would bring in people who had nothing to do with high tech. He'd bring in artists and poets, and just people who had just completely nothing to do with their world. Because he says this is where the new ideas are coming from. You know, so I'm not the first guy to ever come up with this stuff, but I'm certainly capitalizing on it, and
Yeah,
my clients are too. When I teach them how to do this stuff, they now have a skill that they can take for the rest of their lives.
absolutely. Absolutely. Tell me about you said 5 books, right?
Four books right now.
Four
Well,
books.
I have 10 books. I wrote my first book back in oh, 1990, and but our most recent books, the series you see kind of back here, Uncopyable. Well, Uncopyable was my first one. That's marketing and branding. that one. One of the chapters in there is called Stealing Genius, where you do go out and you steal from competition, all right? And my publisher was so happy with it, they had me write the second book back there, Stealing Genius. My wife, who at one time in her, my wife is an unbelievable salesperson. Uh, uh, at one time in her career, she was selling for Walker Automotive, uh, world's largest muffler manufacturer. She
Yeah,
was
oh
their
yeah.
number one salesperson in the world for 2 years. She was the number, I call her Muffler Mama. And so she wrote a book called Uncopyable Sales Secrets. And then and most of the stuff that we had done was helping companies, but at the same time, I also had a lot of people saying, "Hey, wow, you can help me. I could be uncopyable by myself." So we said, "Yeah, personal branding." And so that's where this came from, the Uncopyable You concept. Our most recent book, Uncopyable You, is personal branding book. Now, I will say this, James. To connect you and I. Um, my first book, Uncopyable, came out in 2017, same year that your book
Oh
came
yeah, the
out.
Bold Business book. Yeah, yeah.
Old business book. Right.
Nice.
So we
Yeah.
have that. We got that going for us.
Nice. Yeah, the publishing industry has changed. I can only imagine in the 90s compared to now. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Different game.
Yeah, that was pretty wild back. That was pretty wild back then. I got very lucky. I had McGraw-Hill published
Wow.
my very first book, and it became a very big seller, and it was great. But um, it was about trade show marketing, and
Okay. Oh, funny.
which is so totally out. It's completely out of date now. But um, it was a very very big seller back then. Yeah, I've been very fortunate to have four bestsellers out of the 10 that I've had, and so I'm a lucky guy.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Steve, where can people find you?
Um, what? They haven't seen my house?
Um,
No, no, uh,
just the big
no.
orange beacon, right?
The website is beuncopyable.com.
B uncopyable. That's BE, correct?
Yeah, beuncopyable dot com. Uh, and you reach out. We've got stuff. We can send stuff to people. If they got questions for us, we can put them on an email list. You mind if I make a comment about Kay put together a 5 day personal branding
Oh, nice.
thing. And if you just go to beuncopyable.com slash the number 5 dash emails. Oh, wait a minute. I have a very fancy
Look at that.
yeah,
Beuncopyable.com/5 dash emails, plural. There
yeah.
we go.
You get it, and it'll be a 5 day program on separating yourself from the crowd.
I love it. That is fantastic. Steve, you are Kelly's dad. We didn't even touch on that. So is Kelly in the marketing world as well?
She's in sales. Kelly grew up to be I taught her how to play golf because I just thought that'd be a really good thing for a girl to do. And she ended up falling in love with it. She became one of the world's top amateur players.
Very
Uh,
cool.
Played scholarship D1 golf for Portland State University, was very successful there. She got hired. She did not want to be a professional golfer, so Callaway Golf hired her to sell. She became a salesperson for Callaway Golf, uh, world's largest manufacturer of golf equipment and clothing and stuff like that. And so Dad was very happy to have that connection.
You get some discounts now.
It was so awesome. Well, she's not there anymore. She finally left Callaway, and she's now working for a private country club down in San Diego. selling memberships and stuff. She's fantastic golfer, great kid, and her boyfriend is a great golfer too. So yeah, golf is in the family, and we have a great time. But yeah, she from the day she was born, she was Kelly's dad. And just quick story about her and the color orange. Uh, I was marketing consultant, and I thought, oh wait, branding. I really need to do some branding. So I thought I need to pick a color. So when she was 2 years old, I put some color swatches on the floor, and I said, pick a color. Uh, she picked orange, and then I waited a couple of weeks, and I did it again, put it on the floor. She picked orange, and that is why our color is orange for branding and
I
stuff.
love it. Hey, it works, man. It works. It
It
works
does
very
work.
well.
It works really, really well.
Yeah,
And
it's
I
a
talk
bold
about that a lot.
color.
I talk about that in the Stealing Genius and in Uncopyable is stuff like you use things like color. I mentioned language, like with Starbucks and stuff. These are things that are anchors and triggers that you can use that nobody can take from you.
Right.
They cannot copy you in these ways. They have to come up with kind of their own language, their own colors and stuff. And but you can see, like we always, we always say, hey, if you become and we don't have fans, we don't have followers, we have BFFs. And we say if you become one of our BFFs, and you are allergic to orange, you'll be dead in 2 weeks.
No.
So
Oh, that's awesome. It's everywhere, but that's good. That's
that's
good. I
right.
love how I
That's
mean,
exactly right, James.
there's no one else that can do what you do, especially, I mean, even if they have a pencil that's orange, I'm sure they're gonna be like, whoa, that's
Oh,
Steve's
that's right.
color.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's the whole idea is that nobody else that does consulting and speaking and stuff like that can try to do that, because we did it and the world knows it. So
You own a measurable percentage of the rainbow, right? Isn't that
uh
1/7, 1/8? What are we talking about?
that's good. That's good,
That's
James.
incredible. I love it. Well, Steve, thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh man, what a pleasure. It's been I did all the talking. You did I didn't give you much chance. So
No, well, you're my guest, man. I just got to come here and gather the guests and record it here. So you make my job easy.
Well, been around for a long time, so
Yeah.
I hope it's
Yeah.
been helpful. That's the important thing. I really want to make help your listeners, your BFFs, have get great information.
I think you had more than a few nuggets on there, and I didn't even know about the stunt thing, the 8-track thing, the Deming thing. I'm missing the
It's
sales
cool. It
and
was
the swap
cool
meet
that
and
you
stuff like
knew
that.
that I could tell. I could tell when you said Deming. It's like
Yeah, I've read.
not very many people know that.
Oh man, I've read a couple of his books, and well, I guess I used to be a mechanic way back when. So the American car versus Japanese car a while ago.
Yeah,
I mean, now you
the
can't even tell which
story.
is which,
That's
but
Toyota's story.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I read the Toyota thing. I don't was it an autobiography of oh man, you're jogging my memory here. And then I read about Sony with his whole stuff.
yeah,
So yeah, Deming's a sharp guy. Yeah, I guess as far as that
he
goes.
was. Yeah, he was. And American companies did not like him.
I can't imagine the meeting where he's like, "Hey, here's these things," and they're like, "Quality control, get out of here." What are you
Yeah,
talking about?
yeah.
And as a guy that had a 1979 Chevy Malibu, that I swear to God,
Ooh,
I pushed
ooh.
that car more than I drove it. And then you learn about Demi, and I was like, I feel like GM should have been like, "Yeah, come on in here. We could learn a few
You
things."
pushed that car more than I drove it. I love it.
Yeah, no joke, man, no joke. But I guess that said, just like you, I mean, you have some mistakes in your life. Mine was that car, to a point that just leads you to where you are now, and you're like, you know what? Was it a mistake or was it just a learning
Every
experience?
step along the way. I say it all the time. I am the sum total of all the Steves before me.
True. So true. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
That's
is it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Steve.
Stay in touch with me, James. Thank you,
We'll
man.
definitely do. We'll definitely do.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, likewise. This has been Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. My name is James Cademan, and Authentic Business Adventures is brought to you by Calls on Call, offering call answering and receptionist services for service businesses across the country on the web at callsoncall.com. And of course, the Bold Business Book, a book for the entrepreneur in all of us, available wherever fine books are sold. If you're listening or watching this on the web, if you could do us a huge favor, subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and of course, share it with your entrepreneurial friends, especially those entrepreneurial friends that may be in the commodity and they just can't seem to compete because everybody else is selling the same widget that they are. We'd like to thank you, our wonderful listeners, as well as our guest, Steve Miller, who is Kelly's dad, as well as a marketing gunslinger. Steve, can you tell us that website one more time?
Uncopyable.com. BE, the word uncopyable, all one word, .com.
I love it. And then as far as books go, are they available everywhere?
Amazon. Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right. Awesome. Past episodes can be found morning, noon, and night at the podcast link found at drawincustomers.com. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next week. I want you to stay awesome. And if you do nothing else, enjoy your business.